Okay, so hello to our audience, and let's see, this is Travis Newbill at Shambhala Mountain Center, and we're talking today with Doug Karr, who is an independent film director who's been making films since 1997. He's a director of Pie Face Pictures in New York City, and he's recently released a film called Art Machine that was that our executive director at Shambhala Mountain Center was the executive producer of this film. And so we're going to talk with Doug a little bit about that film today. Hi, Doug. Was all of that right?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, absolutely. Nice chatting with you.
Good. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
So, just a brief synopsis of the film is that there's this artist who is a child prodigy, and as he's transitioning into adulthood, there's an expectation from his audience as well as his mother and others for him to sort of realize his, adult artist self. And so he's searching for his artistic identity and for inspiration, and he ends up sort of going a little bit nuts. I love this synopsis on the International Movie Database is the website. He must resolve the clash between creative genius and clinical mania. So it's revealed that he's bipolar, and so he seems to be just, channeling inspiration, but then it's sort of, not to give away too much, gets the best of him a little bit. Did that seem about right?
Yeah, that's pretty right on the money.
So I thought I'd start with just a question about art and sanity. It seems to me, I grew up in America, and so in Western culture, that art is not always seen to be as necessarily an expression of sanity, and that there's some sort of glorification, it seems, of like the maybe disturbed, tortured, crazy artist. And I wonder if you see if that seems true to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think in our culture, the way that artists have manifest for a very long time has been, it's a real mix between what I think originally artists and artisans and crafts people. The value of what they did was, not something that was like disproportionate to their sort of like what it was like for them in their everyday lives. It was pretty straightforward, and they weren't paid a humongous amount of money in their lifetime, and their art, the market hadn't turned into this hugely overvalued system. So I think once the sort of like mercantile nature of the industry took over, that really shifted things in terms of who wanted to get involved in the practice of becoming an artist and involved in sort of like being in that industry. And I think that is part of what I think drives some of that kind of like chemical imbalance possibility is one thing. And then there's also this thing of like, people who gravitate towards numbers and gravitate towards like order, they also have certainly the potential for difficulty with keeping grounded. But I think that people who gravitate towards making art, by the very nature of like those the mediums that you're getting excited about working with and all that kind of the potential there's I think more people who kind of go that way are a little more out there, a little more free thinking, have a lot of kind of interesting insights into what they want to say about the world, and that can go either way. Like, I don't necessarily look at mental health as it's like a negative thing when somebody has sort of free flowing out their mind. But of course, there's a line, and if it becomes if someone's really losing it and having like a psychotic break in our culture, that's definitely something that is that people have a hard time dealing with. There's been ancient cultures where those people have been looked upon as seers, and I think that is interesting to me, and I think it's related to the sort of the artistic possibilities. When someone has that sort of like wide open mind, that there can be a little bit of groundlessness there potentially, but it can also be an amazing opportunity for them to find freedom of expression.
It's interesting. It seems like you just described two ways in which maybe the artist is not supported in this culture often, and one is the livelihood aspect and actually existing as someone who's going to be engaged in making art according to their inspiration and provided with sustenance to keep going, that's rare, and that creates a lot of pressure or uncertainty or disturbance. And then the sort of mental activity that may result in artistic expression, there's maybe not so much guidance available or ways of of cultivating that in a positive way, and so those people maybe become I don't know, like there's no place for that sort of person or that sort of mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true.
And so the other thing that just occurred to me was that given that second aspect of the artist having inspiration and visions, and in other cultures maybe that's they're seen as, they're valued for that, and in this culture that makes it maybe difficult to function. Is there a fine line there, you would say, between it was, I think, phrased nicely, creative genius and clinical mania, and can you say something about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that in my life, when I was growing up, there was quite a few people in my world who were having psychological sort of breakouts when I was a teenager, and there was some. I found that it was almost a very attractive thing when someone would start to kind of lose it, because they would manifest all this really amazing energy and be communicating all these very, what felt like almost like direct sort of like super inspired insights, and that was both frightening and attractive, and when it was sort of this, when they were on the edge, but before things got really crazy and the police got involved and they ended up in jail cells or whatever, which did happen to quite a few friends of mine. It was there was this like kind of amazing place in the sort of root of the mania or psychotic break that was going on, and I think that there is this aspect of genius in that, and I think that people who are like either highly intelligent or highly artistically minded or just like super inspired have that potential to walk that edge, and that's something that I've always found really interesting, and it's something that I think it's really kind of a sort of like dangerous slash evocative place, and I think that the reason I wanted to make this film was to explore that, and I got really excited about studying child prodigy painters and researching those kids about, I don't know, like 5 or 6 years ago, and I started to see how there was like this potential if I kind of combine those two ideas to take a kid who was going through some amazing things and kind of like had all this potential, and then suddenly this, you know, the folks who like to monetize things jumped in and took what was a pretty cool, inspired gift and started making, you know, mass amounts of wealth generation out of it, to kind of take that idea and see what would happen to that kid when he started to reach his teen years, when there's that potential for you know, bipolar disorder and schizophrenia, and a lot of those mental illnesses start to manifest in the sort of like 16 to 18 range, and especially if you combine that with psychedelics and other drugs, which I think a lot of teenagers experiment with, there's that sort of like crazy mix of possibility there. So that, I think that's where that kind of edge became important to this story and became something I wanted to talk about.
Mm. I wonder, you know, if it's the other interesting thing that was, you know, recurring throughout the film was the supporting characters. Cassandra, who is, you know, becomes like the romantic interest or love of the main character. From time to time, she introduces like a Buddhist notion into the film, and so I wonder how, you know, how Buddhism, which is, you know, holds sanity as like the, you know, the highest human potential or attribute, like how that sort of contrasts with this state of mania, but also, you know, maybe closely related to that state of really fresh, you know, groundless sort of inspiration.
Yeah, sure. I mean, well, I'm a second generation Shambhalian, so I have had a lot of great kind of teachings and practice at my disposal from birth. So I feel very lucky about that. I think one of the sort of aspects of that crazy wisdom mind is, you know, the groundlessness part, which again, it comes back to this idea of like, everything would be fine if our culture accepted it on some level, as long as the person's not hurting themselves or someone else. There's, you know, this crazy out there aspect of what they're doing, and it's pretty great. But obviously, like, once, you know, what ends up happening is people stop eating or start, you know, really losing it. And I think that from what I've seen, the more that people practice in the early stages, sometimes there's a lot of potential for them to kind of start to lose it, because they're opening up a whole new world of mental activity that they've never really been exposed to before. And you know, people can kind of like take that sort of open freedom mind to its extreme, and I've always found that really interesting, because oftentimes what happens is they come back and they find their ground again, often through more practice and meditation. But I sort of thought it was an interesting opportunity to take a character like Cassandra, who's got some real ground under her feet and really knows what she wants and understands where she wants to be as an artist, and doesn't buy into the sort of like moneyed nature of the industry and just wants to do her own thing. You know, and she's an outsider artist. She's like lighting the sides of buildings on fire with her so yeah.
Sorry.
No problem. So you know, so she's got her own pretty out there thing going on, but basically what I found exciting about her character is that she her kind of like focus on impermanence and on the sort of like true nature of reality, I think was at first very interesting to Declan and got him sort of really shifted in a new direction, but then those ideas in and of themselves become more fuel for the mania, which I've seen happen before. And ultimately, I think by the end of the... I would just wait till the moon.
So,
no problem.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, sorry about this. Yeah, I'm sorry. Can you please call back?
Sure. Did I get the right extension? I'm trying to reach Kaylee Isaacs. Extension 360?
This is Kayla's extension. I'm using her office right now, and I'm in the middle of a live video interview.
I understand, sir. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay.
I will send her an email and follow up that way.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay. Jesus. Okay, so I can edit this out.
Okay, perfect. Great.
If you can, please pick up where you were, because it was a really interesting thread.
Yeah, so I mean, I think, you know, basically the there's this quality I've seen to people who kind of get a little hit of Dharma, but don't have the foundation of years of practice or whatever. That it can be very sort of like liberating, and that can kind of get more and more liberating until the point where they're starting to sort of like not have as much ground under their feet, and it's certainly something I've experienced. And in the case of Art Machine, I got excited about the possibility of seeing how somebody could end up sort of going down a rabbit hole with that kind of stuff, fueling their mania, because they're taking it to the extreme, and they're starting to see how, like, you know, if you look at the whole sort of like stratosphere, yeah, we're all incredibly lost, and if you look at, you know, the sort of like the outer reaches of space, you can find yourself, you know, standing on a ball spinning around, and as we all are. So it was an exciting opportunity, I thought, to kind of explore that, and then to have the ground forced back underneath Declan's feet through his own actions, but then, you know, by the very nature of you know what it is to be human, he ends up back sort of like relating to what he's gone through in a very real, direct way, and I thought that was an exciting opportunity to show that kind of progression and see that arc.
Yeah, it's something that's familiar to me also, and the notion of spiritual materialism comes to mind, of sort of latching onto these concepts and thinking you're like really like getting it all of a sudden, and you know, expanding until something gives way and you come crashing back into your body.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I thought that was done beautifully in the film. So I think that is there anything else about the film that you wanted to say or to tell people about? Any like news or ways of connecting with the film?
Yeah, so the film just launched on iTunes and on demand. So you can see Art Machine by typing in Art Machine in the search box in iTunes. And if you like the film, please leave a comment and rate it on iTunes. And if you hate it, feel free to leave a comment somewhere else, and or call me directly and we can battle it out. Yeah, no, I'm really excited to have the film out there, and it's getting some great press, and a lot of folks are really enjoying it, and it's such a thrill to have it finally be out in the world for everyone to see. So check it out.
Great. Well, congratulations on the achievement, and best wishes for its continued success.
Thank you so much, Travis. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Cool. So thanks again for joining us, and we'll talk to you again soon, I hope.
Okay, absolutely. Sounds good.
All right.
Have a great rest of your day.
You too.